This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Settle back in your chair, get a nice cold drink. This is going to be an interview that you're not going to want to miss because we always talk about taking your business to the next level. I mean, that's what it's all about, transforming your business, preparing your business to grow and scale, optimizing your workflow. Well, you want to know something? We've brought a worldwide leading expert on the show about taking your business to the next level. He has an incredible company. You probably know about Jason. His name is Jason Miller, and he is the founder and CEO of Strategic Advisor Board. And there's so much to talk about. I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to let Jason take the baton because we're going to get into it. You're going to learn so much in this interview. It's going to be remarkable. Jason, so excited to have you on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Yeah. Hey, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me here and being able to hopefully affect something in the whole world today, because that's always my mission, is not to just affect one. I want to affect everybody and leave a huge footprint on this planet. So that's my goal.
I love it, Jason.
Let's do that today.
Let's do it. You're in the War Room, of course. That's where you do your podcast, and you've got so much great information you put out online. So many people love what you do. I mean, you've become a real leading expert. Before we get started, however, you're in the War Room. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Of course, Jason, tell us about the Strategic Advisor Board, and then we're going to get into it.
Yeah. So really, the model itself was born out of sheer wanting to tell the rest of the consulting world to piss off, basically. That's really how it was born. It was born to do it different, to not do it like everybody else does it, and to not disable small companies, right? Because that's who we're fighting for. We're out fighting for the small guy. We're not out there fighting for the big corporations and all that. We're fighting for the small guy that wants to take their company and shoot it to the moon, right? And so I had to figure out, well, how do I do that? How do I do that the very best way and not like anybody else? So I created a results-based model. It's very simple, right? We just do a revenue share. That's what we do, of what we impact and what we cause. Money you would have never found, right? And, a lot of people said, you're crazy for doing that. That'll never work. You're going to work for free. You're going to do all this stuff. And my response to that was, no, I'm actually pretty damn confident in what we can do. And we've been doing it for going on 6 years now, and it's been nothing but awesome. We've taken lots of companies through COVID and kept them alive, and just continuing to leave an impact in business today. And in my mind, that's all it's about. It's about service. I like to tell people I've been serving people since 1999, basically, in some capacity of either the military or people in business, whatever, leaders, you name it. And it's my passion. I love it. I wake up every morning just freaking jazzed about doing that.
I love it. I love it so much, Jason. Of course, behind you in the War Room, there's a knife up there. We want to talk about that down the road. But listen, I love it. You put your money where your mouth is. You say to a company, hey, we're going to increase your business. And guess what? We're just going to take a piece of that increase and we're going to prove it to you. And I love that model. Now you're a multi-best-selling author, you and your team. You've got this thing called the power of 10. And I love that so much. And, people are hearing about that. That's starting to resonate everywhere. let's tell the people what the power of 10 is in the unlikely event they haven't heard about what you're doing, and then we're going to get into it.
Yeah. So the power of 10 was really designed because we also have the $10 million blueprint. So you can see there's obviously something going there, right? So 10, there's 10 of us in the company, and the 10 of us have very specific superpowers, right? That's what I call them. So we're all good at 3 to 4 major things, right? Now imagine having 10 successful business owners come into your business, which might be a little bit scary, but it shouldn't be. Imagine 10 successful business owners coming into your business, all bringing 3 main superpowers with them. The 3 things that they're really, really good at coming into your business and now helping you make sure all of those things are dressed in your company to help grow it and scale it at the same time. It's a very powerful thing. It's a tool. And I like to say, I could literally bring my team into your company, drop it in your company until you go on vacation for a year and come on back and see us in a year. We don't do that. We don't do that, but I'm just for the dramatic effect of it.
I love it so much, of course. And, your case studies are remarkable. And, you believe in a very strong business foundation, but you also believe in powerful, rapid revenue growth. And you provide that strategy. So what types of companies reach out to you and they say, hey, Jason, we've heard about it. We want in, we want part of this opportunity. What types of companies are you talking to right now?
Well, so I like to say we're agnostic because we really are, because we really don't care about the thing, right? Because it's all about the business itself, right? But as far as who we work with, it's everything from manufacturing to solar to everything in between, all of that, e-commerce of all kinds. It's a wide variety of different companies that we work with. And, in my mind, none of that even matters. None of it matters because we're focused on the business, not the widget. And that's the key right there.
I love it. Of course, you've built so many companies, on your own from the ground up, starting back, right around 2000, 2001. I remember back then it was, the millennial and everybody was having a great time and they had that, Y2K thing going on. So much fun back there. One of the superpowers, that you've become known for is if you have this little idea, something called micro pivots. And I think that's a great name. Let's talk about a micro pivot, what that means to the people watching the show.
Yeah, well, everybody got adapted to this word pivot during COVID, right? It's like became the punch word, the pivot, right? Well, you take most smaller companies, they can't pivot. They can't really pivot because when we talk about, creating strategy and all these things and then making pivots, the first thing that comes to most people's mind is what's that going to cost, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. When we talk about pivoting, a pivot is usually something big, right? God, we're screwed. We got to make a pivot, right? Well, design the pivot, but design it so it's implementable in phases versus all at one time. It could absolutely be $1 million pivot, but your company can't afford $1 million. So we do micro movements to get there, right? In phases, micro pivoting to create the cash flow to be able to make the big pivot. And that's why I dubbed the word micro pivot.
I love it. Makes sense. Make little pivots along the way. Don't chew off too much, because you're not going to get there. That leads me to this $10 million CEO playbook. This is unbelievable. There's so many CEOs that are just beating their head against the wall. They can't get to the next level. They can't seem to get there. And when you're an entrepreneur and you start to think that way, you think that you're the only person in the room that's feeling that way, but it's not really true. Let's talk about this $10 million CEO playbook. It's a very fascinating approach, and it's a great way to sort of set precedent for what you do in the war room.
Yeah. Well, whether we're talking about CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owner, whatever title you want to give yourself, right? Every company at some point, they hit a ceiling, right? And then they don't know where to go next. And then they hit the next ceiling. And then it just continues just infinitely, right? In these different places. And if you don't have a playbook to go from 1 million to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, wherever you want to get to, if you don't have a system to follow, business is all about systems, right? And as we level up every time, it requires what? Better systems or better planning or better strategy. Better may not even be the right word. Enhanced, right? We have to enhance all those things and level all those things up too. Because if you look at, the process from end to end, right? That's the whole point. All the way from acquisition process, all the way to the end of, well, God, what are my internal processes and procedures now that I have just leveled my company up $5 million? Doesn't that all change? It absolutely does. It has to change. With growth in a company comes some change in process and procedure too. And that's really what the playbook does, right? Is takes companies through this process to be able to not just grow and scale, right? Two very different things. People mix these things up. We always talk about growing companies. I look at growth as people process. Scale is the money side. And if you don't do them simultaneously, right, something fails, right? I got 50 employees, but my revenue is $5. We got a problem, Houston. So it's a delicate process. It's like a symphony, right? You're the composer up there and you're just doing your thing. And all of a sudden, oh crap, fulfillment went to shit. Uh-oh, what's next? Oh, we got to fix that, right? So it's a delicate balance through that whole process. And at scale, all businesses have the same problems. It doesn't matter if you're a $300,000 mom and pop or $100 million medium-sized business. The problems are all the same. They're just bigger.
That's right. It's so interesting you mentioned that. I love that. And, you talk about it and you talk about it in such a interesting and simple way for people to understand. That's one of the hallmarks of what you and your team do. I mean, your SAB team, they work with companies really to develop new strategies that increase. You focus in on the top line a lot, which I like, because when companies win that work with you, you win. And when they win, you win. And when you win, they win. It's a complete circle. I love it. And I'm thinking to myself, talking to you, I know you have a military background. And I believe you and your wife both have a military background. And I started thinking about, what you do in the war room and how you have this win-win mentality. Did that come from the military? Or was that something started when you were younger? Where did that whole idea come from?
Well, so being in the military and being deployed and in war and all those things, which I won't get into any of that. But, when I left that and retired from that, I thought, I'm going to go fight a different war now, right? And I created the war room, right? Because business is war. There's just no bullets now. Our weapons are computers and pens and printers and all those kind of things nowadays. Printers, God, I don't even know if people use printers anymore. But but that was the whole. That was the whole idea behind that. Was, business is still war. We still have a fight to fight. Because guess what? Small business is the backbone of America, man. And, the fight is keeping that alive, keeping that connected into community and all those things, right? And I don't know if this stat's still correct, but the last time I looked, it's $17 trillion of our current business revenue in the United States comes from small business. And it's almost half. So who's important? It's small business. And that's where we're trying to really affect that. And I took a lot of that process and a lot of those things from the military over all those years and created my own system of how to help companies grow. And I used it in all my companies for years, and it's a proven system. It works. And you know, we have people on the team, the very board team, that are part of the model itself. We've put our own people through the process too. So we're living, breathing testimonies of our own.
Yeah, I love it. The process. It's all about the process. And, you know, when you look at the team and you look at the names on the team that you've been able to put together, it looks like a who's who of entrepreneurship. I mean, they're fantastic. Let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about the team. You know, a lot of companies, the team's breaking apart. Sometimes the teams aren't jiving. Sometimes things aren't working right. One team's not communicating with the other team in different parts of the company. Let's talk about sort of strategy. I would imagine in your mind, I mean, if the teams aren't working in a cohesive manner, you got a big problem, right?
Yeah. Well, team is everything, right? I mean, there's a reason they say there's no I in team, right? So team is everything. I don't care what you're doing. If it's, you know, you're taking somebody to combat, or you're putting a team on a project in a company to accomplish a certain task, that is everything. And, you know, as a leadership role, what's really important is that we empower our team. Right? We empower our team to do the things that, you know, they're really good at. And that's why I chose the people I chose, because I have people that they have, you know, the 3 or 4 main superpowers, right? So that helps to culture a team, right? Because now I'm not trying to, you know, take Bob and shove him in a position that he doesn't have the superpowers in. Be really good at 3 things, and that's what you got to focus on. Don't try to be a you know, the ultimate tactician, right? Because you can't be good at everything. I hate the saying, I'm a jack of all trades and master of nothing. Good for you. That's not very helpful.
Right. Exactly. We agree, and specialists win and generalists lose. And I love what you said. Let's talk about this a little bit, Jason, because this is very, very interesting, because we have some younger entrepreneurs that watch the show, and maybe they're starting out on their journey. Maybe they have a startup that they just started, or they have one in their mind. I could spend 4 hours with you just, you know, giving you an opportunity to share advice with all the startup entrepreneurs. But, you know, what comes to mind when you have someone watching the show who's a startup founder, startup entrepreneur, they're thinking about starting their business? What are some nuggets that we can sort of leverage from your, you know, from your playbook, if you will, your $10 million CEO playbook, that younger entrepreneurs just starting out can sort of think about?
Well, not really a playbook piece of advice, more of pieces of advice that are important here. And that is, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is imminent and it's going to happen. Guaranteed. Okay. Embrace it, get up and move on, right? Rub some dirt on it and move on, baby, right? Otherwise, embrace failure because it's going to happen no matter what. Okay. Number 2, don't try to bootstrap on nothing. Go get funding early, right? Or you will sit there and spin and spin and spin. You hear all the success. Well, we bootstrapped. Yeah, but the reality is it's probably only about 0.5% of companies that bootstrap and make it. 93% of startups fail because they don't fund, right? Fund the company at least to its first year. Don't worry about taking a paycheck. Hustle your ass off. If you actually believe in yourself and what you're selling, there is no reason why not to fund the company, right? Startups don't fund companies because they don't actually up here believe that they can make it happen, right? So it's like, if I don't get myself in debt, then it's no big deal. Well, debt creates wealth. That's another conversation. But but debt does create wealth. And if you leverage money correctly as a startup and use the OPM model, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's other people's money. Use the OPM model to fund your company and get it out of the gate. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to get it out of the gate, or it's going to be 2 years later. You're going to lose the passion for it, and it's going to die on the vine.
Amazing advice, Jason. And of course, when we think about that, we think about the can-do attitude versus the can't-do attitude. And I know you're married, to a wonderful woman. You've got 4 children. I think you have some grandkids as well. I mean, you must have started super early here. What's the thing you want your kids and your grandkids to know? What's the baseline? Like, is it to have a can-do attitude, to have a winning attitude? Don't say I can't do something. Or are there other nuggets that you want your kids and your grandkids really to sort of have based on what you do in the war room and what you do at the company?
Don't worry about a legacy. Worry is not the right word. Don't focus on a legacy. Focus on changing the world and leave a footprint.
I love it. That's so succinct and so beautiful. And one thing that you do to change the world, I know you and your team, you give back. And one thing that you're passionate about that I love is you give back, even with the book sales, a portion to helping vets. And that's so powerful. Let's talk about that, because that's just a great thing that we learned about you.
Yeah, I'm a veteran myself, so I love to support veteran causes. And that's very important to me. So all of our book sales, we match dollar for dollar to Homes for Heroes. I'm also part of another group, and we're right now, as we speak, putting together a wonderful program through another 501c3 to basically eradicate suicide and homeless veteran, and we're going to do it, damn it. And there again goes back to creating wealth, right? You can't do the things that you want to do unless you can create wealth. You can't take on a big mission like that unless you have the money to do it. And it's about giving back. It's about giving back. Everything is about having a higher purpose and giving back to other people. And while I'm not a mindset guy necessarily, but the universe does have a way of returning all the good in one way or another.
I love it.
Success is measured in more ways than just money. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's so great. And of course, not only do you live it in your personal life, but you live it in your business life. For example, one thing you do, which is just remarkable based on, this incredible talented group that you have in the Power of 10, you allow people to actually set up a 30-minute growth accelerator session with one of your team. I mean, that's incredible that they can actually talk to one of your team for 30 minutes. Let's talk about that, because I would imagine, that's a web conferencing 30-minute session that, could potentially just be magic for a company.
Yeah. Well, our focus is solving 3 problems. If you take the time to come talk to us, we'll help you solve 3 problems in your business before we even have another conversation. It's that simple.
That's incredible. I mean, 3 problems solved within 30 minutes. I'm sure, it's instant powerfulness for the people that talk to you. I love it so much. And I'm sure, these books are as important as the phone calls as well. And it's just a nice, beautiful package you put together. You have the podcast, you've got YouTube videos, you put out all this great information around the world. You have so many followers that come and watch. It's very, very exciting. Now, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time with your day. I mean, to get you booked in here at this time today was almost a miracle, but things fell together very well. Let's talk about it. let's give back to the younger entrepreneurs because, hey, some of them are having a tough time. Like you mentioned, 93% of startups fail. They don't have the right idea. They don't have the right tactics. They don't have the right strategy. They're not, they're trying to bootstrap. They don't have enough money. They don't understand about other people's money, which, obviously, a great deal about. For the younger entrepreneurs watching the show that are having a tough time right now, pothole in the road, roadblock, their knees are getting skinned, they freeze in the frame. Let's share some ideas from your perspective about what they can do to get through those tough times.
Trust your instincts for starters, right? I think a lot of people question whether or not they're making the right decisions. And typically it's always the first one, right? The first gut instinct is usually the one that's right. And it's when you start to question, it's like, oh, well, maybe I should do this instead, or maybe I should do that. Go with your gut the first time, right? And, typically that's going to lead you in the right direction. I'm not saying it's always going to lead you in the right direction because by God, mine's taken me in the wrong direction. Might be because I was hungry or something. I don't know. But there's lots of help out there. That's the point, right? Young entrepreneurs, you got to set ego aside. Ego is a huge killer of business, right? There's a lot of people out there that have taken all those arrows in the back already, so you don't have to. Lean on people, right, to help you get through some of those times because they've already been there. They've already walked that path. So, whether it's your father or mother or somebody in the family that owns a business or something like that, they've probably already walked that. Don't be so ego driven that you don't take the time to pull information from people that have already been there. And of course, our team's always available to talk to as well.
I love it. Of course, at the top of the interview, and that's great advice for the people watching the show, especially the younger entrepreneurs. Rewind what Jason just said. Spot on, nailed it, as he always does. Let's talk about the knife. Let's talk about the knife behind you. At the top of the show, I mentioned it.
Yeah.
You've got a knife behind you. I'm curious, it has a history. You shared it with me a little bit prior to the interview. But when you think about it and you look at it and you look at your military career and you think about that knife especially, tell us just a little bit about the knife and what it means when you look at it every single day when you go to the war room.
Yeah. Well, so the knife has served in combat, and it's really there for me as a reminder that, life isn't always safe, right? And I guess if somebody breaks into my office, I got a knife. But no, life isn't always safe. And it's always a reminder to me of service, right? Because that's where I come from. I come from a place of serving others. I've been that way. That's been my whole life, has been in service of others. And that reminds me every day when I'm walking from my desk to here and I see it, and I see it in my background all the time in Zoom. It reminds me every day that my mission is always to serve, because that knife served me and got me through some difficult times, for another conversation over a beer, perhaps. But that knife got me through certain things. So now it's a relic for me to look at and remind myself every day, you're here to serve.
Yeah, I love it. What a powerful message, a powerful visualization. I know you're a big believer in visualizing as well. What a great interview. This has been fantastic. And I really wanted to thank you so much for sharing some insight. I'm going to bring you back on the show and spread out for an hour, because I want to talk about the steps. I want to talk about the actual strategy, because so much can be learned from what you and your team have done at, of course, the Strategic Advisor Board. congratulations on really optimizing workflows and helping so many companies improve not only their top line, but their bottom line as well, and helping your clients not only make money, but make a lot more money. And it's awesome. So Jason, thanks so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. What a great interview.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be around like-minded people like yourself, and thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.